Hey y'all, it's Gabby Beckford, Gen Z travel influencer, opportunity expert, and host of the Young Travelers podcast. Each week I amplify the stunning stories of 20-somethings who have opted out of the status quo, live life for the plot, and will inspire you to travel while you're young too. Today, we're chatting with 25-year-old Kylah Williams, who took a huge but calculated leap of faith and applied for the Fulbright Grant. Spoiler alert, she got accepted, and now she's spilling the tea on her Fulbright experience in Mexico City. She shares her personal PTO application tips, why you shouldn't let fear control your dreams, and her day-to-day life as a Fulbright winner. We also touch on travel topics like adapting to cultural differences and the importance of language inclusivity and diversity in travel. Keep both hands on the wheel, pull your car in cruise control, and let's tap into this convo. Hello, and welcome. I am so excited to be talking today to Kylah. She has had a really special travel experience as a young traveler. I talk in my platform a lot how I've won the Bourne Scholarship and how that helped me study abroad, and like how financial resources can help get younger people abroad sooner and how it can change their lives. And Kylah is truly a testament to that because she won the, reading word for word, Fulbright Binational Business Grant.
Got it.
Actually, yeah, like 2 months ago. So I'm going to be asking her kind of all about that today, but that's not all. Now, as an alumni of the Fulbright program, Kylah is a ambassador. Is that the title?
I guess unofficially. I'm not like an official ambassador, but I always talk about it and they've reposted some of my stuff every once in a while. So that's nice.
Oh, cute. I know. Well, I just know how tight the Fulbright kind of community is. And like everyone's always trying to help people with their applications. And like, it's like, oh, you did a Fulbright, like you get it. Like if you get it, you get it.
Exactly. If you know, you know.
Exactly. Well, so now that I want the people who are listening this to know. So you're going to be in the know if you're listening, and welcome, Kylah. Feel free to do a little intro. Tell us about you, where you are in the world right now, what year in college maybe you were when you won the Fulbright, and where you took your Fulbright.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Gabby. I love watching your content and all things travel. So yes, my name is Kylah Williams, also known as that bilingual chick, and I won a Fulbright to Mexico City to do a full year working at a tequila company and taking MBA classes. It was incredible. I feel like a lot of times people are wondering how to balance academics and travel, and I feel like I am truly a testament to being able to do all of that because I've lived in 3 different countries, been able to work abroad. I don't know, I've also completed my bachelor's degree and my master's degree, so I applied during my master's degree year. You usually apply a year in advance, so I had done that around the summer after my senior year, and then I finished it during my master's degree program, and then I heard back around that summer, the following summer. It was the perfect timeline to finish school, to head abroad and study, work, kind of combined all my passions and bring everything to life.
Oh my gosh. Like, to your point, doing school, not even just regular school, like whatever, a master's program, and traveling internationally and like trying to advance your career while trying to like have a work-life balance, but also trying to live your travel bucket list, but also you're studying like a Fulbright and your master. Like, what was it like? Like, what was your day-to-day when you were in your Fulbright? Was it a balance of Fulbright and master's? Were you able to take a break and do kind of some fun stuff with the Fulbright? Like, what was it?
So I had finished my master's degree program before I headed out to my Fulbright.
It says that it was the Binational Business Grant. So does that mean that some of it was in the US and some of it was in Mexico? Or like, what does that mean?
So the Binational Grant, first of all, it's the only program that had it. Mexico is the only country where you were able to study, work, and kind of be abroad. So the Binational Business Grant meant that I was working at a Mexican tequila company, but it was like binational because you're fortifying like the relationship between the US and Mexico through business. So that's where like the binational comes in, and the programs work really well together in order to get candidates and stuff. So I think I was working at a tequila company full time and taking MBA classes at a accredited university there in Mexico City as well.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, let's dive into the travel part of it. Why Mexico? I mean, I'm sure I know personally that there's a lot of Fulbright programs, and maybe you looked at all of them, but you chose the binational one. Like, why Mexico?
So I went to a bilingual immersion school when I was younger, from like kinder to 8th grade. And like 95% of the students at my school were Mexican. So I kind of grew up in Mexican culture and traditions and all of that stuff. And I obviously learned the language from Mexicans. So naturally, when I finished my undergraduate and graduate degree, I was like, I'm not done with Spanish. Like, I still want to be able to use this. And now I know what I want to do for business. So what can I do to combine it? So initially, if you're looking into Fulbright, make sure you build a relationship with your advisor. My advisor is the one that put me on to this specific grant, because initially I was like, I'll go back to Chile because I studied abroad in Chile too. And I was like, oh, I kind of know people, I can make it work. And she was like, you should do the business grant because you're trying to combine both your business pursuits and your language abilities. So it would be perfect. And I did it. And yeah, that's kind of why I chose Mexico, because not only did she tell me about this program, but I also just wanted to kind of have a full circle moment with my studies of Spanish and business. So it was all perfect.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And yeah, shout out to your advisor. I also loved my advisors who helped me research and ultimately apply for the Bourne. Like they were that girl. It's like you go to a website or you go to like a TikTok that specializes in something. I'm like, that's just that person. And they just know everything. They
and
can,
I'm like, thanks.
yeah. And I mean, I love that because in my mind, I guess I would think that the binational grant is a little more specialized. So a little less competition maybe, and like more likelihood to help you get it.
Well, I think the competition just came, like when you're on the Fulbright site, I don't know if it was the same for Boren, but you know how many people will get accepted each year. So like they tell you what is, like sometimes it's around, I don't know what the max is, but I feel like I saw some with like 100 and they're like, okay, you should apply to that because you have a higher likelihood. In Spain, there was always a heavily impacted program. So it was always like, if you take your chances to apply to this one, when you can't apply to two at the same time, so you can only apply to one. But if you take your chances to apply to this one and you don't get it, then you're just kind of out of luck. And for this one, there was 16 grantees that were going to be accepted that year. And I heard maybe like 50 people had applied to that one, at least my year. So yes, there was a higher chance because it's like one of those things, if you know, you know. Like if you see this program and you're like, you fully align with it, then you're going to apply. But other than that, yeah, it was a small amount of grantees that they chose and I was just happy to be one.
Oh my God, interesting. And yeah, totally to your point, when I applied for the Bourne, I was like, this is really highly competitive. And honestly, I found out about it kind of late. And I was like, I gotta like beg for letters of recommendation in 1 week. Like this is a desperate Hail Mary. But when I read it, I was like, this was written for me. Like if I can get this together, I'm that girl. Did you feel like that with your grant? And like what was the application process like?
Yes, I felt that way. I was like, this has my name written on it. And if I didn't win, I just don't know who else would, you know? But yeah, I feel that I just felt like it was exactly what I wanted for this next step and the exact program that I wanted to be a part of. So to the process, guys, it was a long process. I'm not sure how the Bourne was, but you had to apply about a year in advance. And then it was due October 2021. I submitted everything by October. I didn't hear back until January. It's like a long period of like waiting game, just like twiddling your fingers, just hoping and trying not to think about it, but thinking about it.
And like trying to plan your life. You're like, if I don't get it, do I move? Like, do I get an apartment? Like, hello.
Truly, it's stressful. And like as a recent grad, you're just like, those next steps can sometimes be pivotal. You're just like, what am I going to do with this next part of my life? And I don't want to mess it up. So you're trying to have plan A, plan B, and all of that at the same time. So it was due October 2021. And I heard back in January that I was recommended as a semifinalist. And I was like, yes, okay, this is good. This is good. And so I was preparing, having conversations with other grantees just about the process, the interview process, which was to follow. In February, I had the second interview. So only a month apart, but it felt like forever. And then March, I found out that I won and I was like the best day of my life. I remember I was in like grad school in my classroom, just like getting ready for a presentation and I was just bouncing around the class, like so happy. And then May is when I heard about my placement, or we were hearing about the companies that were going to be a part of this grant, because again, we're going to be working at companies. So you had to interview with every single company to figure out if you were a right fit. And then you had to rank the companies from your top 3, and then your companies ranked you. And then
this is a process.
It was long.
The Bourne was like, hey, I mean, you may barely get it, but like once you get it, you're like, okay, bye, do it all yourself. I'm like, okay. But this is it. I mean, your master's program, you're like a lot more advanced than I was, like my junior year of my bachelor's degree. So it's so interesting how different these programs can be.
Yeah. Then it wasn't until like the summer, which is getting really close because I was supposed to be moving in September, that I found out my placement. It was my second choice, but I was still very happy. And after like living it out, I'm like so glad that I had that experience. And not to mention that summer I was interning, like I had a summer internship. So it was just nuts, but everything worked out the way it should have. And I think if you're looking into applying to the Fulbright, applications open in April. So keep that date in mind. I don't know the exact date, but that month in mind.
Applications open in April, but it might be like you have to think a year out, like you said. Like, so if you apply in April, you might be doing it the next summer.
Yes, that is correct. That is right.
Well, so tell me about your actual travel experience. Like, so you were in Mexico. Tell me about working for a tequila company. Like, had you had any reason to have experience with that? Anyway, like, what did you do there? And was it just like a block of time you were down there? Were you just like 1 year or like 6 months and you just were there, or were you back and forth?
So I was there for a full year. The program was September, I think, to June. And the tequila company that I was placed at, I was so happy because I feel like tequila is such an important part of Mexican culture. And so to be able to just learn about it and also visit Tequila, which is actually a place in Mexico that has like the agave plants, was so cool. It felt like, wow, I'm learning something that, you know, in college I had my time with tequila. So I'm like, I'm actually learning about the history
You
of
said my
tequila.
old friend. We're back.
I know, we meet again.
Oh my God.
So it was nice to be at the company. I was working as a digital marketing, they said trainee. That was just my title. I was doing a lot of the digital efforts. So the launching the programs, paid campaigns. I got to launch the Google ads the first ever Google ads that they had on their websites, and like the improved SEO. And again, I'm taking all my skills that I had just learned in grad school and I'm like, bam. Like, I can do this. So yeah, I know. I was like, put me to work. So that was fun. And then I also moved into a little bit more competitive research, looking at some of the other tequila brands and companies. There was a huge influx of like celebrity tequila brands that we probably know about. So just kind of working to see their strategies and how we can like leverage an authentic tequila company to market was what we were mainly doing on the digital marketing team.
Wow.
And it was a bilingual company, which was so cool. Like our CEO would have meetings and she'd be like, hey everyone, and then like, ¿Cómo están? Espero que están bien. Like just easily switching between English and Spanish. I was like, okay, girl.
Your MBA, was it a focus in marketing? Like, was this just like right perfectly aligned with your career path, or was this a little bit of experimentation you were doing with the marketing?
It was still aligned with my career path. I tried to branch out and I took this like machine learning algorithms course.
Ooh.
Why? I mean, it sounds cool, but when the way that class was in Spanish, this was already foreign to me. So in Spanish, it's even more foreign. I was like, oh, you know. So I struggled.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, it was good in theory, let me say, but actual practicality, it was a hard class for me, guys. So the next semester, I chose a class that was very aligned with market research, which is what I do. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to my area of conocimiento, like what I know, because if I don't, I'm gonna end up with the same situation I was in last time, and that wasn't too fun. So yeah.
I'm like spinning. So, okay. I think the big thing for me is that my background with the Bourne is so language focused, but the Fulbright really is about like life experience, or like some of them are research things. Like you knew Spanish going into it. So it wasn't so much about learning the language. It was about like kind of having life experiences with it.
Because the language was a requirement. I don't know how it was for you, but in order to get certain grants, like you had to either have a beginner, some didn't require any, but beginner, intermediate, or advanced level of Spanish. And this one was like an advanced level because they're placing you at a Mexican company. So it's like, if you don't speak,
yeah. Okay, so you already had to be very advanced level in Spanish. And then obviously your own personal life, like growing up with like that dialect of Spanish, like what a great alignment. That is so cool.
It was.
Afterwards, like what was your biggest takeaway on your flight home? What were you like, what did I just do? Or like how, like my life is so different now. Like what were your thoughts on your flight home having that experience?
I couldn't believe it was over. I was just like,
you're like, no.
I know, like land, please. I was like, I feels like I waited my whole life for this type of experience, you know, like making it through college and then to be done and having continued my Spanish language journey all the way through, and to be able to finally be in the country where I learned the Spanish. I was able to celebrate like big celebration traditional cultures in Mexico too. It was just like, I can't believe that it's actually over. So it really felt rewarding. I was grateful that I didn't give up. You know, I mentioned talking to your advisor was great, but at times my advisor was like, I don't think you really want this. Like, you don't seem like you're putting in as much effort as you want. And again, that's because, I don't know, I was, I guess, frazzled a little bit at the beginning of the process, because I was like, what is it that I want to do? No one has ever pitched for market research, so I was still in kind of like an unknown space. So she was just like really that pillar that was like, girl, if you want this, you need to do more research. You need to really work for this. And I was like, okay. Not that I didn't want to work, but it's just like,
it was like, girl, what is this?
I know, literally. So, yeah, it just felt like all that hard work paid off, and I was just so glad. And while I was there, I was able to travel a lot too. So a lot of solo trips and stuff throughout the country of Mexico, and just knowing different ways of living, different jargon that's used in different parts of Mexico. And it was all really great. I would go back in a heartbeat, but I've been home. I know you asked like at the beginning, like where am I based, but I'm in Sacramento right now in California. And I've just been reflecting, and I'm going to hopefully do a scrapbook with all my experiences in the coming months.
You should while it's so fresh. Yeah, well, it's still like so vibrant of a memory. And actually, that was my other question was like, okay, you were there with your Fulbright. It sounds a lot more like official than my bone. And like, we were just kind of like, learn your language. And like, they literally handed us money and were like, go figure it out and then work for us for 2 years. But the Fulbright seems like it was a lot more of a program, but you got some free time. So you got to travel around Mexico a little bit.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that changed from my program to years prior was COVID. So COVID made things a lot more hybrid / remote at times. In previous years, it was all in person. So I was like, again, work-life balance. I was taking advantage of those hybrid days when I was at home, working from home, and I might be at a beach or I might be working in a different city. So I definitely appreciated a little bit more flexibility there because I love to travel. There were states in Mexico that I knew I wanted to visit when I was there, and I had already jotted them down, like planned it, because I'm a planner sometimes. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna get there, and I was able to make it happen either on like long holidays. I think Fulbright gave us about 16 culture days so that I could travel around. Another thing to your point about the Boren and the Fulbright has different grants. So like some people were there as English assistants, and theirs was a lot more simple. Like they were able to just go into class with the students. There were people who were there on research grants. There were people who are there taking master's classes, like getting a master's degree. So there was a whole bunch of different types of grants. Also for anyone who's interested, like this isn't the only one you can apply to. There are other ones, especially if you're not looking for as demanding type of experience. But yeah, the travel, the remote hybrid, like work life was great. I was appreciative of that because it allowed me to see more of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. Kylah's got a lot more to say about her experience as a Fulbright scholar when we come back. Having had that experience working remotely and living in a different country and like having such a unique kind of resume, has that helped you in your career? Have you interviewed for a job and they're like, oh, interesting, tell us about that? Like, has it helped you in any way?
It hasn't helped me land. I know the job market is really crazy right now, and I also really prioritize just like resting a little bit after all of this travel.
Yeah.
But I have had some interviewers be like, this is really cool, you have a very great experience, you have the global perspective. And I'm currently working on a position right now that actually will value my Spanish skills along with my research to do like qualitative research. So I have heard positive praises and everything, but I think at the same time, because my work that I was doing in Mexico wasn't fully aligned with market research, that could have been a little offset for me because I got more digital marketing experience, which is great. But we do that on our own. We do that for our own brand. So I don't always look to do it for big companies. But yeah, I think in terms of my experience, the cultural aspects, competencies that I have, I think companies appreciate that. And I'm hoping to land something real soon. So I'm being picky, but I'm hoping that it'll work for me.
As you should. You have obviously such a unique experience and high level education that you deserve to be picky. Like that's why you did all the stuff to be picky and get the awesome job.
It's true.
So you deserve. I believe it will come to you immediately. I claim it.
Thank you. I receive it.
Yes, please. So, I mean, I have loved hearing about your experience in Mexico, and the program itself was in Mexico City. Was that right?
Yeah, mine was in Mexico City.
Cuidado de Mexico. Yes.
Hey, ya tú sabes.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, I love Mexico City, and I feel like Mexico City's really been popping off. With the pandemic, it's become like, oh, it's right there. Direct flights. Do you feel like you would have gone to Mexico City or maybe just traveled as much of Mexico as you have with the Fulbright program of your own volition, been like, I'm going to stay in Mexico City or I'm going to travel the whole country?
Again, as a planner, I think in a perfect world, I would love to do that, but I think it probably would have ended up being just a couple of trips to Mexico, to different places, different cities, or different states too. Not to the extent at which I was able to do it this time. And again, when it's planned and it's all perfect at the program, I'm like, of course, it's easy. But on my own, let's say I had a full-time job and I had PTO days, I'm just like, okay, now I have to actually figure out how to accommodate it to my schedule. But yeah, I think I would have for sure wanted to visit Mexico. Might not have been able to hit all the places that I went during my time, but it was still on my list. Like I still would have made my way out there, just maybe not for a year.
100%. And like, I swear this is why I talk about PTO so often to my audiences, because like, yeah, maybe you do end up like Dubai. Would I have gotten there eventually? Yeah, but I probably would have done it on a layover and gone to whatever Caesar's Palace and left. And there's no way I would have done it for a year, to your point, or like gotten a school, what it's like to be at a university in Dubai. And you wouldn't have maybe been able to see what it's like to be at a tequila company of all things in Mexico, and like such unique experiences. And again, to the other point you made, the mental load it takes to plan your own trip. Yeah, I probably just wouldn't have had the energy to do it that big. I probably would have just done my little baby version and been very happy with that. But
exactly, because that would have been all I knew. So
yeah,
it would have been
all you
perfect.
knew, and it'd been cute. And like,
exactly.
And I love it. But these programs just open up another door that I think a lot of people don't know about.
Exactly. When they open it, you can walk through. That's why it's always keep your eye out for opportunities. And if you don't have them at your door, like actually look into them, do some research. I know you mentioned other programs. I was looking into Princeton in Africa too, as another program that I was considering. There's plenty that allow you to do the same thing, even if you're in school or out of school. So it's always something out there. You just have to, if you want it badly, you'll look for it, look into it. So, and there's two of us who have done it. So that's also inspiring to just
This is the proof.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear anyone be like, well, no one actually does that. Look at us.
Yeah.
Right here. Living it. Exactly. I love it. And it's just so true. Like, people ask me, I mean, actually, weirdly enough, parents are like, how do I convince my kid to do what you did? I'm like, girl, I am psychotic. I researched this. I had 2 weeks to apply and everyone told me I would fail and I did it anyway and I got it. Like, you have to have that ambition within yourself to be like, no, this is my thing. Like, I need this in my life. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, it sounds cute, but like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it, then that's okay. Don't. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I really have wanted to do it. I've been eyeing it. My sister did it. Like, I saw it on some YouTube video, but I just need that little push. This is the push. Like, let Kylah push because she did it. And we both did it in such different ways too. Like, I was a STEM major. I was an undergrad. I went to Dubai. She was in her master's degree. But then not even a student anymore. And she went to Mexico and she did a working program instead of study. Like, just so many variables in our two scenarios. Imagine the concoctions of paid travel opportunities out there that fit your scenario.
Right. And that's actually incredible for you in STEM. I feel like STEM is a lot harder to jump into a broad opportunity. So if for everyone from business to STEM to arts, there's something for you. Well, good for you. Really good for you.
Thank you. And I had to DIY it. Like, this is all about you, but I had to DIY. I had to make it happen. Like, I found that scholarship and I was like, I'm going to go for it. And they're like, we have never sent a STEM person to Dubai. You're going to have to find your own university. You're going to have to make every single credit count and have signatures from every single professor. Like, they made me go through hoops. And then I was like, pow, 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 pow. And they're like, okay,
said, I'm going to do it though.
And I was like, okay, so now what? I really want to do it. So you're right. You're so right. If you want to do it, you will make it happen.
And I think another thing to that is just like, there's people that would see what I'm doing and they're just like, how is she doing that? Like, why is she doing that? Not out of just like they don't want to do it, but it's more of confused. Like, not everyone's going to understand your path and your vision. And I think that's another thing to note is like, even though they don't see it, if you see it, there's value in it. Like, this world is becoming a lot more of a melting pot. Like, and understanding different cultures and perspectives is so important. You can't just have that American mindset, And I don't know if all of your listeners are from the US, but just in general, like, you want to have cross-cultural perspective because it's important and it helps you relate to different people.
Exactly. And just in life, like, it might be at your job, it might be in your academic career, but it may just help you relate to your neighbor more when they're playing music at 6 a.m. and you're like, they're so rude. And then you didn't know it was a cultural thing that like, Mexicans
they party all night.
Like,
exactly.
It's not even a bad thing. Like, you just don't understand them. You don't know what you don't understand. And that exposure can just open worlds to you.
Exactly. So grateful. So great. And there's still so much of the world that I want to see. And I'm sure you do. And you're well traveled. So I can only imagine like someone who's just starting out, like getting that first step out of your comfort zone is like the first step in like a new life, honestly, because I mean, I can see how it changed your life and it's changed mine and it can change so many others as well. So
exactly.
Just do it.
Exactly. And I do feel like programs like this are a great gateway drug into like, oh, what can travel do for me? Or like what personal or professional benefits or reflections can I have through travel? And like a program like this this, yours was funded, mine was funded. Like it takes away so many of the barriers of like confidence or like I have to do it myself or mental load or financials. If you do the work, you have to put in the work. It wasn't easy. They didn't like find me and hand it to me.
And there's communities. I think there was a huge like Black community in Mexico. I was like, whoa, I did not expect this at all, and was so grateful when I found them, because they have these parties called diaspora parties where they play R&B, reggaeton, hip hop, Afro beats, and I am like, how did I land this? I don't know if you guys seen that video. How did I land you?
Yes.
But I was just literally in shock. Like, this is exactly what I wanted. You know, there's people that are doing the same thing, so it's nice to hear how they got there, and everyone's different trajectories towards the same destination.
Exactly. And it all started with, for you, I guess it all started with maybe that advisor or like you just finding it and being like, I'm curious, like maybe I should apply. So, I mean, that's really my last question to you is if someone's listening to this and like we said, maybe they're just interested or maybe they've always been wanting to do a program like this, but like no one in their family has, maybe they don't even have a passport. What would be your advice to them mindset wise to take that leap?
The feeling that you have to want to do this is obviously not one that you want to ignore, because it's never going to go away, especially when you see other people doing it. You're always going to want to take part. So if it means after a long 9-to-5 workday, putting an hour and a half aside to looking into something, do it. If it means you have a test on Friday, a big exam, and you also know that this application deadline is coming up, give yourself some time to plan in advance to make it happen. That itch to travel doesn't go away. And even after living abroad, even after traveling and studying abroad in different countries, I still want to see more. So it's just like, if you're feeling like there's something that you want to do, look into it. Again, you can look into the Boren and the Fulbright, start there. Look into Princeton in Africa. You can look up like study abroad programs for whatever year in school you're in, or even if you're graduated, for graduate students, or if you're graduate students for graduate students, and then if you're graduated for like postgraduate students. And I know there's something out there. It might not be full year, it might be a week, but it's something that you can also look into. Also, language immersion programs. Like, I think I saw something on EF Break or something that have like language schools in these different cities, and I don't think they require you to be in school. Again, don't quote me on that. You might have to just look into it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, they do.
Okay, cool. So they do allow you to travel abroad for immersive courses. So there's just different angles that you can come at travel. There's something for everyone. So if you feel like doing it, don't let that feeling just like sit back there, because it's gonna keep jumping at you.
Exactly.
And you don't want it to be too late. I don't think there's ever too late, but if you start getting locked down in a full-time job and there's life happens.
Life does happen. Exactly. And it just slips down their priorities the more life. To your point, like exactly. And ours was funded. Even if you don't do one that's funded, like the EF ones, maybe it is just like an investment, but it's an investment that compounds. And especially if you have that bug, like Kylah just said, and it doesn't go away, you'd rather have the pain of researching or that extra hour after work or whatever investment you have to make than the pain of regret later in life. When you're like, now I'm older and I have to, it's even more work. You thought you were tired before. It's even more work to try to make stuff happen later. This is the time to take those risks and make sure that the return on investment of those risks compounds through your whole life, rather than being 65 and being like, all right, getting my passport, girl,
I know.
you're not going to leave the bed.
I know. It's like, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. You don't want to live a life like that. And you have resources. You can feel free to reach out if you ever have questions about the process or studying abroad or living abroad, working abroad, any of that. So I'm happy to support anyone who has the vision.
You heard it here first. Plug your Instagram for them again, please, if you would.
You can follow me at That Bilingual Chick, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, which I'm getting started on. So find me there, and my email is probably the same thing, thatbilingualchick@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your insights, your laughs, and your story with us, Kylah. I hope that someone is listening to this right now and is laying in bed on the verge of disassociating, where they're like, you know what? I want to do this. Like, I'm ready. And like, this is your sign to you, if you're listening, to look at the eligibility requirements, look at those deadlines, like get a plan together. You know me, I have the paid travel opportunities, the PTO dashboard, where all of those things that Kylah and I just talked about exist. Like, I am psychotic, obviously. I looked for them in my lifetime. I put them all on one list so that it will help you. I'm taking barriers out. Like the opportunity tracking spreadsheet, if you're like, oh, well, I just forgot the go get the spreadsheet, I'm taking away excuses from you not living your best life. And so is Kylah, because she just did this entire episode sharing with you all of her personal experiences. So I hope that this one episode compounds to people living their best travel lives abroad. And thank you for contributing to this, Kylah. It's been so great to have you.
It's been great to be here, and I'm rooting for everyone out there who has that vision. I'm right here, right-hand man.
Exactly. We're cheering for you. Replay this episode. We're cheering for you. Go.
I'm cheering for you. Go.
You got it. Never as competitive as you think. Like, showing up is 99% of it. A lot of people don't even do that.
But we did. And now
but we
tell
did.
You how.
And you can say we did as in you listening too. Don't you want to be in this club? Well, thank you so much, Kylah, and we'll check to you later.
All right. Sounds good. Ciao.
Oh my gosh. Huge thanks to Kylah for taking the time to chat with me about what it takes to go from preparation to participation in a Fulbright program. If you enjoyed the episode, give me a follow wherever you're listening and drop a review. What did you like? More importantly, what did you learn? It really helps me, but more importantly, it helps other gonna-be adventurers get inspired by stories like Kylah's. And if you want to travel but don't know where to start, you know I got you. Go to packsite.com for tons of info and resources to get you from traveling one day to day one. And P.S., if you liked this podcast, you should check out Circa. Circa has podcast guides that cover hundreds of destinations for your next big adventure. Learn more by heading to cercatravel.com. Chat soon. Mwah.